Hello, I'm here to introduce our new Teaksaver Rod Holder. We've been approached by some mates on the sport fishing yachts with teak covering boards, and they've said that for the teak covering boards on their sport fishing yachts, they'd really appreciate a rod holder built specifically for them. So what we've done is we've eliminated the tab that's on our usual blue water rod holders, and we've used instead a spline key design for an adapter on the bottom that'll keep the rod holder from rotating, but also won't damage the teak. This design allows you to not have to use screws on the top side, which of course looks great and doesn't split the teak, but also not have to drill that tab, and allows you to easily remove and reinstall the rod holder for teak service. We make this rod holder currently in 6 different versions. We have a fixed gimbal standard version as well as a lockable swivel version. Of course, we make 0, 15, and 30 degree. So a quick explanation of how these rod holders work. They have this adapter which has splines that key it to the body. So this adapter is installed permanently underneath the teak with screws, and then the adapter prevents the rod holder itself from turning. You can remove the nut and slide the rod holder up out of the covering board. The adapter stays down below. Then when you reinstall it, you just line it up with the keys and put the nut back on. A big advantage of this design is that it allows for easy removal of the rod holder for if you need to sand or otherwise treat or work on the teak. And again, without a tab, there's no splitting of the teak, and you'll have a longer service life of your covering boards. This rod holder is available both with lockable swivel bottoms and the regular fixed gimbal. Fixed gimbal, a little more traditional. It's a bit shorter overall. And of course, with a lockable swivel, you can convert it to fixed gimbal by closing the lock, or you can use it as a swivel rod holder. The 0 degree lockable swivel is very popular because it's used for the dredge rods a lot. So one more issue that's unique to the teak covering boards that sport fishing yachts are having problems with was the shade poles that are used often in the aft end of the cockpit on the 30 degree rod holders. The shade pole will put a lot of tension on them, and they'd pull the rod holder up away from the covering board, and they damage the teak and compress the teak. And again, wherever there was a tab there or a screw, if it was a screw style rod holder, you'd get damage to the teak. So the 30 degree fixed rod holder is really popular because it can hold the rod holder in place very strongly, even if you have something like a cockpit shade pole that's under a lot of tension. So here's a brief overview of how you would install this rod holder. Much like any other rod holder, the first step is to drill the angled hole through the teak. Now on our blue water rod holders, normally you'd have to also drill the tab. You can still use our drill guide tool, but you won't need to drill the tab. You won't have to use the little slide on the tool. But I do recommend the drill guide tool to get a good 15 or 30 degree angle as needed. Then once you install the rod holder here, you'll need to install this at the bottom. This is pretty straightforward. Once the rod holder is installed through the hole you've drilled, slide this up the rod holder, and then you can mark where these 4 screws go. So you see you've got 4 screw holes that are here. This is what will secure the adapter up underneath the covering board, and it'll stay there permanently. All you have to do after that is thread the nut onto the rod holder to compress it down to the covering board, and in the future, if you need to remove the rod holder, remove the nut, but this adapter stays in place. The lockable swivel feature is available as an option on these rod holders. The demo on that is that normally this is in the swivel mode. Like any other swivel rod holder, you can use it for either a dredge or deep dropping. We've got an adjustment on the friction using an Allen key, which is included. You adjust these 2 set screws on the side to increase or decrease the drag, and that will change how much drag is on the gimbal as it swivels. And then if you'd like to convert it to a fixed rod holder, simply tighten. This is also a useful feature in that you can steer the direction of the gimbal. So if you want it to be fixed, but maybe you need the gimbal to face one direction for one type of fishing, another direction for another, or you want to adjust it to suit the direction that works well for your boat, you can use this feature to steer the gimbal the way you want.